Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Reason We Learn. I'm Deb Philman, mom, homeschooler, educator. So today I'm bringing a story from my own home school district, CMS, Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. Now, my kids are not in these schools, obviously. They're homeschooled, and you'll see that this is one of the hundreds of reasons why, because I knew this happened a year ago, and you'll hear in this article that this type of thing happened a year ago. And the chairwoman of the board notified the schools that they should not do this anymore. And guess what? They did it again. I guess they didn't get the memo. So that's why they're bringing it up again in this article. But I'm also I'm bringing it to your attention because I'm about 90% sure if it's happening here in Charlotte, North Carolina, it's probably happening all over the country, especially in big cities where parents maybe aren't paying as close attention. And what you need to know about it as a parent is that you shouldn't just wait for your child to tell you about it. This is the kind of thing you need to look into. You need to go and proactively ask the school if they're doing this. You need to demand to see any surveys that are given to your children. And if they're not immediately forthcoming or they give you something like, well, I don't know, I'm not really sure what you're talking about, ask to see the policy about surveying your child, about how adults will initiate conversations with your minor child without your consent that have nothing to do with academics. So, in other words, obviously the teacher is permitted to have a conversation about the academic subject matter with your child without your consent. But if it falls outside their certification, okay, if it falls outside of anything to do with the school's purview, so anything private, religion, sexual orientation, race, socioeconomic status, your employment, your living situation, your marital situation, anything that would be considered private demographic information. Let's put it this way. If your employer or the school as an employer could not ask the teachers about the information in the course of interviewing them for employment, or if your employer couldn't ask you these questions, your minor child should not be asked questions, should not be asked those questions. And you would like to see the written policy making it clear that the school is aware of that they have that on record with, for their employees, and that the teachers have been informed of that. Not just ever, not just when they were hired, but recently. Okay. Also ask to see what the procedure is if it comes to your attention that your child has been surveyed or asked any of these private questions. It could be one question. It could be a one-off privately that the teacher is asking. It doesn't matter. You want to see, what do I do? What's the reporting process I follow to let you know that these illegal questioning tactics have been used with my minor child against my will? Get that up front. And you might actually prevent this from happening in the first place if it's not already happening. If it's already happening, you need to know about it and you need to raise holy hell and make it stop. If it's already been done to your child, you need to talk to your child. And I would recommend that you actually figure out a way to help your child deal with this. Obviously, you don't want to project anything onto them, but let them know that this kind of questioning was inappropriate. Let them know if it made them uncomfortable, that that's okay. And they can tell you if it did and how it did. Again, don't project and be like, are you okay? That's, they might go, yes, I'm terrible, but just say, hey, I just want to let you know that this kind of survey that was done in your class, whenever it was done, is not okay. They're not supposed to do that. If it happens again, let me know. If any of your other teachers do it, let me know, because they're really not supposed to do this. And you have my permission not to answer these questions. If it hasn't been done yet, or you're not sure, or the school's not really sure, and you want to, just let the child know, just say, hey, if any of your teachers ever ask you any personal private questions about you personally or about us as a family, you do know that you don't have to answer those, right? No matter what they say. Like, even if they say that it's required or it's mandatory, it's not. That's not true. They're confused. The teacher is misinformed. So just tell the teacher respectfully, no, I cannot answer these questions. And then you come to me and you let me know what happened. Okay? So you can get out ahead of this, and you should, because this is really bad. Here's what happened. Without parents' knowledge, students are being required to divulge personal information about their religious affiliation, family income levels, preferred gender, and even sexual preferences in schools across North Carolina. Schools may be endangering children while also breaking federal laws. It is illegal. Very important for you to understand that and not feel guilty at all about pushing back. Because as we have learned in the past year, lots of teachers and schools are doing things that are not legal. And who knows if they know that it's not legal and they're doing it anyway, or they don't know, and that's a pretty big problem, isn't it? That tells you how well your public school is protecting your child's rights, or yours for that matter. And it's one of the complaints I have is that the system's so large with such poor training in some of these areas, and rights protection, for example, gets away with things because people take it on faith. They won't violate the law, and that presupposes they know what the law is. Yeah, they don't. And that's also why they can't teach it to your children. So your children don't know they have rights because guess what? The teachers don't know either. And that's being kind. I'm being generous to assume they don't know. So what happened last year in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools is they sent questions to pupils in grades 6 through 12. Now, picture a 6th grader who is not even, maybe 11. My 7th grader is 12. So you're an 11-year-old child and somebody is mandating that you answer these questions. How do you describe your gender identity? Check 1. And the only option you have where you say not sure, and well, not sure means you're not sure you're male or female. You pretty much know what the sort of standard answer is. Now you're 11. You're not sure who's going to see this. You're not sure if your peers are going to see this. I mean, this is intrusive. Do you identify as transgender? How about none of your damn business? How about that? How about we don't be asking questions like this? Which of the following best describes your sexual orientation? Does an 11-year-old have one really? I mean, maybe if they know they're not anything else but straight, but wow, none of their business. So then Elise Dashu, who is the chairman of the board, sent out a memo saying we need to be very careful with our future surveys. And I would say to her, you need to not do future surveys. You should not be surveying students. If you want to survey parents privately and anonymously, you can do that if you want. It just can't ever be mandatory. There's no need for them to fill this out. There is nothing that requires you to do this in order to help the student succeed. There's nothing about the job that you do that requires you to know this information. And there's no data to show that this helps the student in any way. It doesn't even help the teacher unless the teacher is not a very nice person and has an agenda. Okay? So apparently not every school got the memo. So here's what came out last week. Middle school in Charlotte mandated a 7th grade, now we're talking 12-year-olds, a 7th grade homeroom teacher administer this privilege self-assessment. The questionnaire was published by Everyday Feminism, an education platform dedicated to curing toxic whiteness. Curing. Because apparently being white's a disease. If you don't hear how, forget racist, it's genocidal language to refer to an entire race of people as being almost like a disease that you have to cure. And they say toxic whiteness. Well, they've created this thing called whiteness that really is a stand-in for anything and everything they don't like about Western civilization, white people who are white, okay, who are not ashamed of it and not willing to trip over themselves, apologizing and trying to not act, whatever that means, act white, which according to the Smithsonian at one point last year was showing up on time, working hard, trying to get the right answers on a math test. I'll report on that in another video today. And a whole slew of other things. So basically everything that makes society function is now whiteness. So you can be white if you're not even white skinned, if you align with those things or you try to live your life according to that culture. You've been infected with whiteness. It's a disease. So yeah, that's dehumanizing language. That goes nowhere good. That's why Gina Carano was correct. We don't do that. So this everyday feminism, I love how they call these very toxic things. Black Lives Matter. Like, who would argue with that? Everyday feminism, just for every day. Your everyday, completely radical left-wing organization for everyday use. So we have these privilege exercises. Privilege self-assessment. Interestingly, they pair them up and take turns as you listen intently to the individual as they talk about both sides of their list. This exercise allows people an opportunity to air their frustrations at being denied privilege while also acknowledging that we all indeed have privilege. Acknowledging privilege is, I can't see what it says, but how twisted. Let's just randomly pair you off in the class with somebody who will now sit and air grievances to you, who may be aggrieved with you about things you didn't personally do, but you're guilty by association because they don't have a privilege that you allegedly have. We're not going to define privilege for you, by the way, and we're not going to explain to you why these things constitute privilege. You're just going to go through and have to decide for yourself with another person. So if you don't think that your gender is a privilege and you don't check it off and the other person goes, check that off. Check it off, white boy. I can see it now, right? Or, hey, you need to check off that your dad's a doctor. No, but I'm black, so that's not a privilege. Whatever. I mean, this could end up in a fist fight if you're not careful. What is the benefit of this? And why would you pit kids against each other? This is insane. During a math class in rural Johnston County last month, sixth graders were required, again with the required, to complete these surveys on race, religion, and LGBTQ attitudes. We're talking about 11-year-olds. Why should 11-year-olds have attitudes about these things? Why are we even projecting onto them that they ought to already have formed attitudes or opinions about race, religion, and LGBTQ people? This is really also designed to get at what's going on at home. This is a little sneaky way to spy on families, because if you're 11, chances are the attitudes you have either came from your community, your home, the people around you, your grandparents. You might have picked something up. Who knows? I mean, it's not fully ingrained yet, but that's all you know about, and now they'll know too. Okay, so this is prying into your home life, and what your child might consider an attitude might have been just you telling a off-color joke. Who knows? You don't know. And they're a minor child, and now the adult is prying into your life. Not just theirs. So what's your religious preference? They're a kid. Maybe the preference is none. None. I don't want to go to church on Sunday. I want to sleep in. I mean, whatever. So they pick one. What's your race? None of your beeswax. It does say prefer not to say. There is one for that, prefer not to say, but not with religion. Do you think we have achieved racial equality in this world? In this world. We're talking about 11-year-olds in rural Johnston County. How much of this world have they seen or are they aware of? They're 11. I consider myself reasonably worldly, and my 12-year-old is not really, and she'll be the first to admit, not really that sure what's been achieved in the world yet. She's not gotten that far, and she'll admit it. We're not succeeding or failing. Could be better. No, not at all. But I mean, none of these answers are worth a damn because, again, they're 11. How many African Americans do you think said, predict a poll result? How many said that not making changes to achieve racial equality is, a bad thing in a percentage? Yes. They're going to sit there and go, I don't know what's the right answer. I mean, this is insane. These same students enrolled at Innovation Academy in Smithfield were also given a survey in LGBTQ rights to complete in class. Now, this one blows my mind because what this one illustrates is how we have people educating our children. We have people schooling our children. Educating them, who cannot spell, who cannot punctuate, who cannot speak proper English, and that needs to stop. We need to make sure, especially when you have teachers unions and this current administration trying to tell us that homeschooling is a really bad idea and we need to do more to prevent people from homeschooling, because who knows if the parent is educated enough or smart enough or capable or expert enough to educate their own child and how to read and write. What if this and what if that and all the what ifs? And then you see someone who's actually paid to do it, who writes things like, where is this lovely sentence? How many people, if any, do you know that's part of the all lowercase LGBTQ plus community, capital C on community? Lesbian, bi, gay, etc., transgender, non-binary, etc. Answer zeros. You don't know anybody in that community, so you answer 0. I don't know, but how many people, if any, do you know that's? People, that's. Singular, plural. Where's the other one that is so rich? Let's see. We have lots of capital letters and lowercase sprinkled randomly around. If you notice, the second word is often capitalized randomly, like how many with a capital M, does not with a capital N, and then this, do you believe that people in the LGBTQ plus deserve rights? Capital D, no explanation of what rights are. No context, again, middle schoolers, as to whether they already have rights. Because they do. Do they deserve them? Or are you saying that people are proposing taking them away? Because they're not. So no context at all. So imagine a child go, yes, they deserve rights. Well, guess what? They already have them. LGBTQ rights are really important to me because I myself am part of the LGBT community. None of your business. So then I'm supposed to say, this is why I'm lowercase I, no apostrophe M. Lowercase I. This is why I, lowercase I, want to know your opinion on this topic. The teacher wrote this. The teacher had every opportunity to proofread this before producing it and giving it to the students. So next time the teacher says, "Oh, we're just, we're not teaching grammar, except it's gonna occur organically. It's gonna be within the curriculum, but we don't actually teach grammar. We don't diagram sentences anymore. We don't do that. It's too hard." You're starting to understand why they want to, disrupt texts. They want to get rid of the classics, because the teachers can't read them. Yeah, that's the real reason. The real reason is the teachers can't read them, don't want to read them, or give the students no credit for being able to learn how to read them, or they already know that by the time the students are getting to them in middle school and high school, they literally can't read much of anything, so they're not going to be able to read Homer. They probably won't be able to read Mark Twain. Okay? So they're coming up with all these formulaic books that have the same, 200 vocabulary words written about activist topics. And because they're thick and have chapters, everybody thinks they're age appropriate. But if you actually look at the reading level, they're probably somewhere in the vicinity of 4th or 5th grade. Not very complex, either grammatically or in terms of vocabulary. And yet, again, because they're thick and they're chapter books, they go, "Oh yes, this is a high school book. We can't read the classics because whiteness. We can't read the classics because colonialism. We can't read the classics because oppression." Well, they're only oppressive if you think that actually knowing how to read at the appropriate grade level is oppressive. Reverend Dr. Wendy Ella May, an LGBTQ advocate and the first LGBTQ political candidate in Johnson County, objected to these questions being posed to elementary students. "I think it's a very inappropriate survey. First of all, to ask an 11-year-old about LGBTQ. Second of all, without contacting parents, it is inappropriate," and she is correct. In addition to being inappropriate, these forced surveys violate a federal law which prohibits public schools from asking students questions about sex behavior or attitudes, religious beliefs, political beliefs, and critical appraisals of other individuals. Again, we're pairing off, we're criticizing, we're judging others. Totally wrong. North Carolina public schools have been collecting students' personal data without parental consent for years. 2019, students at South Johnston High School reported a Spanish teacher asked them to disclose their belief about abortion and homosexuality and then segregated them according to their beliefs. A Spanish teacher. Exactly what does this have to do with learning to speak Spanish? The teacher was suspended. Good. During the same time, Wake County schools received national condemnation for administering a diversity inventory worksheet that asked students to identify their gender, sexuality, ability, religion, and socioeconomic status. In addition to answering for themselves, students were asked to answer those questions about their elementary school, their teachers, close friends, doctor, other people who live in their home, and neighbors. Why? I mean, what earthly good does this do? And it's so intrusive. Now the district is under federal investigation for violating Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, PPRA, a 1978 law that requires parental consent to collect personal information from families. So this is a federal law. You may not know about it, and the teachers may not know about it, which is inexcusable in my personal opinion, but they may not know about it, and they may be doing these things, I'm not going to say innocently, because there's no good reason, right? But whether it's ignorance or not, they can't do it. So if you confront a school and they go, "Well, we didn't know," then you have to ask yourself, how did you not know what my child's rights were? You're in charge of them all day long. Like, it's your job to know. It's your job to know. And when you consider how many administrators they have, how much they're paid, etc., it's pretty inexcusable. Sharing sensitive information through an unsecured process may endanger students who trust school administrators to keep their data secure. Imagine the hands this could fall into. So they're putting a file, maybe it has their name on it, and somebody gets their hands on it who shouldn't. Somebody who works in the school isn't the teacher or whatever, or maybe it's the teacher themselves. Details of teen sexual proclivities could easily fall into the hands of abusers involved with the school system. Criminals could then prey on victims during the 38-plus hours students spend in schools on a weekly basis. In his recent testimony to Nevada's General Assembly on child sex abuse, forensic psychiatrist Dr. Michael Wellner highlighted the stages of grooming from predators: gaining a child's trust, finding a need they can fulfill, sexualizing the relationship, and isolating them from parents and other protectors. It's not a stretch to wonder if data collected from these surveys would give would-be predators the chance to jumpstart the grooming process with vulnerable victims. Endangering LGBTQ students. There are numerous other reasons why students might want to keep their personal information secure, not the least of which is that disclosing one's sexual identity too soon often comes with dire consequences. Schools that collect data on students' sexual and gender preferences may be required to turn the data over to parents if requested. Students may have an expectation of privacy while taking the surveys, but actually LGBTQ students may be unknowingly outing themselves to their families before they're emotionally prepared. So even if the parents accept them, if they're not emotionally prepared to share this information, it's not good, whether it's with the teacher or the parents. According to National LGBTQ Task Force, physical abuse and even self-harm are common results of coming out story for many, with almost 1/4 of all suicides young people between the ages of 12 and 29 believed to identify as LGBTQ. Last year, Tennessee teenager Tyler Clementi took his own life after being outed as bisexual by classmates who then bullied him. And this talks about my brother committed suicide because of the actions of two kids that he trusted that turned personal screenshot messages over to social media in a deliberate attempt to assassinate his character. Clementi's brother wrote on Facebook, "The risk of students' personal information getting into the wrong hands surely outweighs the benefits from collecting the data." There are no benefits. Let's be clear. Zero. None. Not a one. I've never seen a school, an administrator, a teacher justify these. You'll notice nowhere on that questionnaire does it explain why they're collecting the data. That should be the bare minimum of just respect. Adult is talking to a child. You don't tell me this. It's mandatory. No, I'm not going to tell you why. You just have to. It's like mind rape. The risk of students' personal information getting into the wrong hands surely outweighs the benefit from collecting the data. Well, I just said that there was no benefit. No good reasons. Why are teachers asking questions to students that even their own employers cannot legally ask candidates during job interviews? A fact surely not lost on any teacher. That's what I mentioned at the outset. And why are parents never consulted prior to requiring students to divulge private information? These should be rhetorical questions. They just shouldn't even be happening. Perhaps these teachers are ignorant of student privacy protections and parental rights, or just running psychology experiment, think blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment, or perhaps teachers really are collecting the data for manipulation purposes. And it says neither scenario. Those are three. Neither scenario is great, and both confirm what most people already know. North Carolina's public education system has forgotten that privacy is for parents and students. Transparency is for the government. So yeah, transparency is for the government, and we never get it. Never get it. So my kids don't go to school in these schools. And as I just said, this is one of the many, many reasons why. There's so many other reasons. And believe it or not, this one is not even necessarily the most egregious, and it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So as I said, go to your school. First, go to the school. You can ask your child first if they've ever asked any personal questions, if you want to just, see if they have a copy of it, or, when it happened or whatever, so you can go armed with information. But if you don't feel comfortable talking to your child about it, then go straight to the school and just say, I want to see your policies. What's going on? I hear this is going on in other cities and other states, and I want to make sure it's not going on here, and it will never go on here because I do not approve of it. It's against the law. And I want to make sure, because I've been told that it can result from ignorance. I want to make sure there's no ignorance here. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks. Or better yet, leave. Because the only way you can guarantee they're not going to do it then the day after you asked is for you to not be there in the first place. So as I keep saying on this channel, these are things I want to make you aware of that are going on in your schools, so you can try to do something about it, or so you can just feel empowered to walk away. So you can understand that there are borderline illiterate people doing inappropriate things in public school classrooms with your children without your consent, and in lieu of educating them in the academic subject for which they are certified. So you put those in any order you want in terms of importance, but to me, the equation always ends with the same result. Get out. Get out. Like the movie says, get out. Okay? So, if you need help with that, you know where to find me. Locals, here, wherever. I hope you found this content valuable. I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel, like this video, comment on this video, share this video. That's the video.